Good evening, Tony. The team of specialized Coast Guard divers and investigators have been searching the Sea of Abaco. You can see them right behind me. We watched as members of the team jumped into the water about 8 feet deep, and some investigators got onto land. This Coast Guard team arrived in the Bahamas Tuesday as they probed the disappearance of Michigan mom Lynette Hooker. Their goal, find new evidence based on GPS data gathered from an electronic device, according to a U.S. official. That data appears to be different than her husband Brian Hooker's account of his wife's disappearance. Brian Hooker was questioned by Bahamian authorities, but ultimately released, has not been charged, and denies wrongdoing.
She was already in the water before anyone knew she was gone. That is the part that does not leave you. Not the timeline, not the courtroom language, not the press conferences. The part that does not leave you is the image of a 55-year-old woman, someone's mother, someone's daughter, a woman who called the ocean her happy place, who documented sunsets and laughed with her daughter on the phone, who sewed her own boat cushions and ran morning miles and chose this life deliberately and joyfully. That woman, already in the water, while her husband slept below deck. At least that is what he says. What the GPS says is something else entirely. Before we go any further, this episode contains details that some viewers may find deeply disturbing. We are talking about the possible murder of a wife and mother, allegations of deception, and evidence that, if confirmed, points to one of the most calculated betrayals a human being can commit against someone who trusted them completely. If you are sensitive to content of this nature, please be aware of that before we continue. We do not sensationalize here at CAC Crime Trending. We follow the evidence. We speak for the people who can no longer speak for themselves, and right now, we are speaking for Lynette. If you are new here, welcome, and we are genuinely glad you found us, though we wish it were under different circumstances. Hit that subscribe button right now because this case is moving fast and you do not want to miss a single development. And drop a comment below telling us where in the world you are watching from tonight. This community spans every continent and every time zone, and every single one of you matters to this work. Now, take a breath. Because what happened in the last 24 hours in the disappearance of Lynette Hooker is not a development. It is not an update. It is not another chapter in a slow-moving investigation that has dragged on for 2 months with no answers. What happened today is the moment this entire case has been building towards since the night of April the 4th, the night Lynette Hooker walked out of a bar on Elbow Cay with her husband and was never seen again. A 154-foot United States Coast Guard cutter is sitting in Marsh Harbor right now. There are specialized divers on board, and they are not there because of a hunch. They are there because of coordinates. Specific, precise, damning coordinates pulled directly from one of Brian Hooker's own electronic devices. Coordinates pointing to locations in water 25 feet deep. Locations Brian Hooker never once mentioned to investigators. Locations he sent everyone away from by telling a story that his own phone has now called a lie. We are going in. To understand why this case hit the way it did, you have to understand who these two people actually were before April 4th. 2026 became a date that would land on national news. Lynette Hooker was 55 years old, from Onstead, Michigan, a small town in Lenawee County. Brian Hooker was 58, also from Michigan. By the time they sailed into the Bahamas in early 2026, they had been married for roughly 25 years. In 2023, they bought a sailing sloop in Rockport, Texas. The boat was a 1980 Morgan 461, a 46-foot charter vessel originally from the Virgin Islands. They spent close to a year repairing and preparing it before setting off. They named it Soulmate. John Waters, a friend of the couple who met them at an oyster bar in Panama City Beach, Florida that same year, told Fox News Digital they were genuinely warm people living out a retirement dream they had planned for years. He also said plainly that they were not particularly experienced sailors. That detail sits quietly here. It will matter later. Under the name The Sailing Hookers, the couple documented everything across Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Their content was consistent and warm. Island stops, meals cooked on a solar oven, snorkeling, dinghy trips between anchorages. They built a real following. People watched because the life looked earned. What that audience did not see was a police report from Kentwood, Michigan, dated February 1st, 2015. Officers responded to a residence after a report of an intoxicated woman locked in an upstairs bedroom. Both Lynette and Brian accused each other of assault that night. Brian told police Lynette had struck him in the face multiple times. Lynette told officers Brian had hit her in the forehead. Brian had a bloody nose. Lynette had no visible injuries. Only Lynette was arrested on a charge of assault and battery. The warrant was later denied after a prosecutor found insufficient evidence as to who started the altercation. The case was closed. Neither was charged. On Friday, April 3rd, 2026, Lynette posted to their Instagram account a photo of boats anchored in calm, clear water. The caption read, "Not going anywhere for a while." The next evening, she was gone. April 4th, 2026 began on the water, the way most days did for Brian and Lynette Hooker. That morning, they left Soulmate anchored at Aunt Pat's Bay near Elbow Cay and dinghied their way to Tahiti Beach, a shallow sandbar on the southern tip of Elbow Cay where a barge floats out during fair weather and serves drinks to boaters and tourists throughout the day. From there, as Brian later described in a phone call to friends, they made their way by dinghy to the Abaco Inn, a waterfront bar and restaurant in Hopetown. The Abaco Inn sits at the water's edge and has surveillance cameras positioned across the property. The couple had been there the evening before as well. That day they settled in, ordered drinks, and stayed into the evening. At approximately 7:30 p.m., 4 minutes after sunset that night, per Bahamian officials, Brian and Lynette left the Abaco Inn and boarded their 8-foot hard-bottom dinghy. It was now dark and the moon had not yet risen. Their destination was Soulmate, anchored roughly 1,000 yards away at Aunt Pat's Bay. According to Brian's own description of the route, the trip back required navigating a southwestern turn through the channel between the cays. What Brian told the Royal Bahamas Police Force happened next is the foundation of everything that followed. He said the conditions turned rough shortly after they set out, high winds, choppy water, and that Lynette fell overboard. He told authorities she went into the water with the boat's ignition key in her possession, which caused the engine to immediately cut off. He said he lost sight of her as strong currents carried her away. He threw a flotation device after her. He yelled her name. He lost an oar. He threw out the anchor, then eventually pulled it back and began paddling through the dark. His dinghy drifted and washed ashore on a stretch of rocky beach near the Marsh Harbor boatyard, approximately 4 to 4.5 nautical miles from where the incident supposedly occurred. He walked through brush until he reached the boatyard, found someone there, and reported what had happened. He arrived at approximately 4 a.m. on April 5th. Hopetown Volunteer Fire and Rescue was notified at 5:12 a.m. and, per team leader Richard Cook, searched extensively for 6 hours without locating Lynette. A large-scale multi-agency operation followed. The Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, local fire and rescue teams, the Bahamas Air-Sea Rescue Association, and the U.S. Coast Guard all deployed resources spanning marine, aerial, and land searches, including drone technology and professional divers. On April 7th, 3 days into the search, a flotation device Brian said he threw to Lynette was recovered along the shoreline. Lynette was not found. On April 8th, Brian published a statement on social media describing what happened as a boat accident caused by unpredictable seas and high winds. That same day, the Royal Bahamas Police Force took him into custody for questioning. He was held for 5 days. On April 13th, prosecutors declined to file charges within the time frame permitted under Bahamian law, and Brian was released. Royal Bahamas Police Commissioner Shanta Knowles was direct. Brian Hooker would remain a suspect. The investigation was active and ongoing. His attorney, Terrell Butler, told the media shortly after that Brian had left the Bahamas to visit his ailing mother in the United States. He has denied any wrongdoing. He has not been charged. Brian Hooker's account of April 4th had 5 distinct problems. Each one is documented. Each one stands on its own. The first problem was the weather. Brian told the Royal Bahamas Police Force that conditions turned rough after they left the Abaco Inn, seas building, winds picking up. A dark and difficult crossing that left him unable to control the dinghy or reach his wife. In recorded phone calls Brian made to friends in the days following Lynette's disappearance, he described 3-foot waves bouncing her off the back of the dinghy. That description was the foundation of everything. Without rough water, there is no credible explanation for why a capable woman vanished on a short stretch of shallow, protected sea between Elbow Cay and Soulmate. Ashley Banfield, a journalist working directly with primary sources on the case, reported that a photograph obtained showing the water near Soulmate at the time of the incident captured conditions that looked calm, directly contradicting Brian's angry seas account.
Picture? Here is a photograph of Soulmate in Aunt Pat's Bay at 7:41 p.m.
Brian's legal team has not directly addressed the weather discrepancy publicly. The second problem was the tracking data. Soulmate was equipped with an automatic identification system, an AIS transponder, that continuously broadcasts a vessel's identity, speed, and position. Fox News Digital obtained data through marine tracking company Vessel Finder, showing Soulmate's AIS went completely dark at 9:29 p.m. on April 4th and did not resume transmitting until 8:40 a.m. the following morning, an 11-hour blackout on the exact night Lynette disappeared. Maritime law expert Kenneth Engerand, an adjunct professor at the University of Houston Law Center, told Fox News Digital the timing was highly unusual. He explained that AIS systems do not simply switch off and switch back on without cause. There are limited explanations: catastrophic power failure, physical destruction of the unit, or deliberate deactivation. No public explanation for that blackout has been provided by Brian or his legal team. The third problem was Edward Smith. Smith is the overnight security guard at Marsh Harbor Boatyard, the first person Brian spoke to when he washed ashore in the early morning hours of April 5th. In an exclusive interview with Fox News Digital, Smith recounted exactly what Brian told him. Brian said he last saw Lynette swimming back toward Hopetown with a yellow bag on her person. He said Brian fired 2 flares from the dinghy, with the first passing a boat that did not respond, and the second doing the same. Smith also noted he directly questioned Brian about the timing, pointing out that if the incident started around 7 p.m., why was Brian only arriving now at 4 a.m.? Brian told him the wind was too strong to make progress. Now compare what Brian told Smith that night with what he told friends in recorded phone calls. In those recordings, Brian said Lynette swam toward the sailboat, not toward Hopetown. The direction his wife was last seen swimming changed between his first conversation ashore and what he told friends. That is not a minor detail. That is the last known direction of a missing woman, told differently to different people. The fourth problem was the thermal camera. Soulmate was equipped with a FLIAR system, a forward-looking infrared camera valued at approximately $33,000. The device operates simultaneously as night vision and thermal detection, capable of picking up heat signatures in complete darkness. Daniel Danforth, a friend of the couple who met the Hookers in New Orleans in 2023, told both Fox News Digital and News Nation that Brian once personally demonstrated the camera tracking Danforth's wife as she walked down a dock purely from her body heat signature. Danforth confirmed Brian never activated the system the night Lynette went missing. He said he informed the Coast Guard about the camera in early May, and investigators told him that was the first they had heard of it. The camera capable of finding a person in dark water was available, operational, and never turned on. The fifth problem was the light on the water. Karli Aylesworth told the Daily Mail that security footage from the area captured a bright flash of light on or around the anchored Soulmate approximately 17 minutes after the couple left the Abaco Inn at 7:30 p.m., and a second flash recorded around midnight. Soulmate was moored in shallow water a short distance south of the inn. Karli told the Daily Mail she believed the couple likely made it back to the boat, that something may have happened on Soulmate rather than in the channel. She pointed out that the location where Brian claimed the incident occurred would have required them to travel in the opposite direction from the sailboat after leaving the inn's dock. Brian Hooker and his attorney Terrell A. Butler have offered no public explanation for the documented light flashes or that directional discrepancy. Brian Hooker has not been charged with any crime. Terrell A. Butler has maintained his client's innocence and stated that authorities have not presented evidence of wrongdoing. What is stated here are documented contradictions drawn from verified sources. They are not a verdict. When Brian Hooker called Karli Aylesworth on Sunday evening, around 8 to 8:30 p.m., to tell her that her mother was missing, Karli later told CNN he was matter-of-fact about it. He gave her the same account he had given to Bahamian authorities. She told the Today Show his tone was monotone and relaxed. She said she was in shock, not just by the news itself, but by how he delivered it. Karli Aylesworth is Lynette's daughter from a previous relationship, reported by CNN as 28 years old at the time of the disappearance. Within days of April 5th, she had retained an attorney. Ron Marienfeld, confirmed across CNN and Fox News Digital, and was already pushing publicly for a full investigation. She traveled to the Bahamas. She sat for a 2-hour interview with the U.S. Coast Guard's Detroit sector. She spoke across CNN, Fox News, ABC News, and NBC News. She provided a DNA mouth swab sample to the Coast Guard to help identify any remains that might be recovered. What Karli disclosed about the relationship between her mother and Brian added layers to a case already drawing national attention. She told NBC News the couple had a turbulent history and did not get along well, particularly when drinking. She told CNN that her mother had previously confided Brian had choked her during a fight, though CNN stated it was unable to independently confirm that incident with law enforcement. Separately, Karli disclosed that in January 2026, 3 months before Lynette disappeared, her mother told her Brian had threatened to throw her off the boat during a fight that occurred in 2024. Lynette had briefly separated from Brian around that period before returning. Karli told News Nation her mother left after that fight, but eventually went back, and she believed the fighting persisted. Terrell A. Butler responded directly in a statement.
He definitely denies causing her death, and he's still asking about her and is hopeful that she will be recovered.
Darlene Hamlet is Lynette's mother. She told CNN the family was still in shock and had many unanswered questions. She told the Associated Press she had not heard from Brian in nearly 2 days and was heading home from the Bahamian consulate in Miami after securing an emergency passport to fly to the Bahamas. Authorities had not kept her informed. When the renewed search launched in June 2026, the Coast Guard requested DNA samples from Lynette's relatives. Karli confirmed to CNN that she and Lynette's parents, including Darlene, all provided mouth swab samples that Thursday to assist in the investigation. Both samples are now in federal hands. The identification can happen the moment there is something to identify. This case is not slowing down. It is accelerating. If you are not yet subscribed to CAC Crime Trending, do it right now and turn on the notification bell. New developments in this investigation are breaking faster than at any point since April 5th, and you need to be here when the next one lands. For nearly 60 days, every dive, every aerial grid, every resource deployed by Bahamian and American agencies had been directed toward a specific area of the Sea of Abaco. That area was based entirely on information Brian Hooker provided. He told investigators where Lynette went overboard. He told them where to look. And they looked there repeatedly for 2 months and found nothing. Then the FBI finished processing the digital evidence at its facility in Quantico, Virginia. A marine navigation app on one of Brian's electronic devices had been recording movement data. What that data showed, per a U.S. official who confirmed the findings to CBS News, was the device moving out onto the water, stopping at a fixed location in the Sea of Abaco, and then returning to shore. CBS News was first to report the development. ABC News, NBC News, and multiple affiliates confirmed it independently within hours. The data did not show a helpless drift through dark water for 9 hours. It showed deliberate movement to a specific point and a deliberate return. NBC News confirmed directly through a U.S. official what that meant for the previous 2 months of searching. Brian Hooker's account had caused investigators to search in the wrong area of the Sea of Abaco. Fox 2. Detroit, reporting from Michigan with sources close to the investigation, stated plainly that Brian Hooker gave false information to police about what happened to his wife. CBS News also reported that Brian had previously shared maps he said showed the dinghy's route and the location where Lynette went overboard, and that investigators now had independent forensic data that directly undercut that version of events, pointing them to a completely different location. That location sits in water approximately 25 feet deep. Aerial searches conducted over 60 days would not have identified anything on the bottom at that depth. The only way to determine what is there is to send divers to the exact GPS coordinates the device recorded. As of June 3, 2026, a U.S. official confirmed to Fox News Digital that the case is being investigated as a homicide. The Bahamian government formally approved the U.S. request to conduct the new search in its territorial waters. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Margaret Norval, hull designation WPC-1105, departed Miami and arrived off the coast of Elbow Cay on Tuesday, June 3, 2026. On board, a specialized dive team, a cadaver dog, and a crew for land searches. The vessel was photographed moored off Elbow Cay the same day it arrived. There is one additional detail from this phase of the investigation that has not received enough attention. In early May 2026, before the GPS data became public, CBS News obtained a Coast Guard Investigative Service memo stating that CGIS was actively seeking to locate the owner of a separate sailboat that had been moored near Soulmate in Aunt Pat's Bay on the night of April 4th. The memo stated the owners or occupants of that vessel may have information relevant to the investigation. As of this episode, the crew of that sailboat has not been publicly identified. They have not come forward. Investigators are still looking for them. What they may have seen that night, anchored beside the boat where Lynette Hooker was last known to be, has never been made public. On the morning of May 10, 2026, Soulmate left Marsh Harbor. Karli Aylesworth was watching. She spotted the movement and posted about it publicly. 2 men she did not recognize were at the helm, and the boat's GPS had been turned off. Those 2 men were later confirmed to be a delivery captain and his first mate, hired to pilot the vessel to the United States. Brian Hooker was not on board. He had left the Bahamas on April 15th, the day after telling ABC News that finding Lynette was his sole focus and that he would hire or beg people to help search the water. Hours after that interview, he was gone. Within hours of Karli's post, the U.S. Coast Guard confirmed what was already in motion. CGIS, working with surface assets from Sector Miami and aviation assets from Air Station Miami, had coordinated a complex surveillance and interdiction operation. They intercepted Soulmate approximately 40 nautical miles off the coast of Melbourne, Florida, in international waters. After Coast Guard agents boarded, the vessel's engine lost power entirely. It was taken under tow by the Coast Guard cutter Winslow Greaser, and the tow transferred to Coast Guard Station Fort Pierce, where Soulmate arrived on Monday, May 11th, confirmed by CBS News drone footage showing it docked and taped off under federal custody. It did not stay there long. Fort Pierce did not have the capability to haul a 46-foot sailing sloop fully out of the water. Authorities relocated Soulmate approximately 100 miles south to a port in Fort Lauderdale. Once hauled, every surface submerged since April 4th becomes physically accessible for the first time. The keel, the hull underbody, every through-hull fitting. Per a U.S. official confirmed to Fox News Digital, once pulled from the water, Soulmate will be taken to a secure warehouse to be examined for evidence. Nicole Parker, former FBI special agent and Fox News contributor, explained what that means in practice. Any digital devices that can be taken, any computer systems that can be extracted, anything of that sort, will be brought in. Every piece of electronics removed, processed, and preserved, potentially for use in court. One piece of technology on board is drawing focused attention: CBS News reported that Soulmate was equipped with an infrared camera made by technology company FLIR, capable of detecting heat radiation and operating as night vision. The camera can operate with a cloud memory system, uploading footage continuously to remote servers. Even if recordings were deleted locally, the data may still exist on servers reachable by federal investigators through a Department of Justice subpoena. CBS News reported investigators are examining whether the camera was in use on the night of April 4th. It is not publicly known whether Brian activated it that evening. What is known is this. Karli Aylesworth told CBS News that Brian was always the one who drove their dinghy. He was always in charge of the key. The fact that Lynette had it when she went overboard, she said, does not make sense to her. That question, about the key, about the camera, about every piece of technology on that boat, is now in the hands of federal investigators. Brian Hooker has not been charged with any crime. His Michigan-based attorney Crystal Marie Hauser, based in Kalamazoo County, told ABC News there is absolutely no evidence to support any of the allegations made against her client. Absolutely none. On June 2, 2026, CBS News reported that the case of Lynette Hooker is now being examined as a possible foreign murder of a United States national. Fox News Digital confirmed independently the same day that investigators are treating the case as a homicide as they review digital evidence, location data, and the couple's seized sailboat. Two separate U.S. officials, two separate outlets. The same conclusion reached simultaneously. The specific law at the center of this investigation is Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 1119, the Foreign Murder of United States Nationals Statute. This federal law gives prosecutors jurisdiction to charge a U.S. citizen for murdering another U.S. citizen on foreign soil. No American soil is required. The suspect does not need to remain abroad. As long as both parties are U.S. nationals and the death occurred outside the United States, within another country's jurisdiction, federal charges can be brought at home. Both Lynette and Brian are U.S. citizens. The death, if confirmed, occurred in Bahamian waters. Federal jurisdiction applies. The U.S. official who spoke to CBS News was precise. The government has been examining the case under this framework for weeks. No charges have been filed, and this should not be interpreted as a new development or a shift. It is the legal structure investigators are operating under as they build their evidence. Nicole Parker, former FBI special agent and Fox News contributor, added publicly that there is probably a lot more evidence than what the media or general public is even aware of, and that multiple federal agencies are almost certainly involved simultaneously. What was on the ground in the Bahamas on June 3rd confirmed exactly that. The joint operation included the FBI, CGIS, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and the Broward County Sheriff's Office. A Broward County K-9 team arrived at the Abaco Inn in Hopetown with a cadaver dog named Maggie, walking the beach and shallow water near shore. A rigid-hull inflatable Coast Guard boat launched from the Margaret Norval cruised the waters of Elbow Cay alongside a Royal Bahamas Defense Force vessel. Multiple teams, multiple agencies, all of them working the same location simultaneously. Former federal prosecutor Tad DiBiase told News Nation that the inconsistent story Brian has told is particularly damning, and that an investigation and prosecution can proceed even if Lynette is never recovered. Former federal prosecutor Julie Rendelman told Fox News Digital directly, if Brian Hooker were charged and convicted of murder under the federal statute, he could be facing some type of life sentence. She also noted she found it troubling that a man under investigation for the potential murder of his wife would leave the Bahamas, return to the United States, and then disappear altogether. That last point is not a small one. Brian Hooker's current whereabouts are not confirmed. His Bahamian attorney Terrell A. Butler declined to comment on new developments citing the investigation. His Michigan attorney Crystal Marie Hauser has not responded to repeated requests for comment from Fox News Digital. A source claiming to be a close friend told Fox News Digital he may have left the United States by way of the California-Mexico border, by land, or possibly by water, citing his extensive boating experience. A second source said the couple had previously crossed from San Diego into Tijuana without being required to show identification. Brian Hooker is 59 years old, 6 feet 4 inches tall, with distinctive white hair and a Marine Corps tattoo. He has not been charged with any crime. He has denied any wrongdoing. Karli Aylesworth told ABC News on June 4th she is happy investigators were able to get Brian's location and discover new areas to look. She said she knows they are working very hard. As of today, June 4th, 2026, this is where things stand. Coast Guard divers entered the water on day 3 of the renewed search on June 4th, scouring the Sea of Abaco near Elbow Cay, guided by GPS coordinates extracted from Brian Hooker's own device. The search has already expanded beyond the original target area. Teams are now working northwest of Lubbers Quarters Cay and near Marsh Harbor, close to an abandoned boat harbor, as investigators widen the search zone based on what they are finding on the ground. No body has been recovered. No evidence has been publicly confirmed as found. The search is active, and it is moving. On land, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and the Broward County Sheriff's Office Cadaver Dog Team have all been physically present at the Abaco Inn, the last confirmed location where Lynette Hooker was seen alive. The surveillance footage from that establishment, the staff accounts, the physical layout of the space, all of it is now being processed as part of an active federal criminal investigation. The Soulmate is in Fort Lauderdale being prepared for a full haul-out and warehouse forensic examination. The FLIR infrared camera's cloud storage is under review. The FBI is still processing digital evidence at Quantico. DNA samples from both Karli Aylesworth and Darlene Hamlet are in federal hands, ready for the moment identification becomes necessary. The case is formally being examined under Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 1119. Brian Hooker has not been charged. His whereabouts are not publicly confirmed. Both of his attorneys have declined to comment. 60 days. That is how long Lynette Hooker has been missing. She was 55 years old. She was from Onstead, Michigan. She spent years building a life on the water with someone she trusted. She paddleboarded in Marsh Harbor in the weeks before she disappeared. She had a daughter who has not stopped pushing for answers since the morning of April 5th, and a mother who sat in her home in Michigan and gave a piece of herself so her child can be identified when found. That is who Lynette Hooker was. That is who this investigation is for. This case is not over. It is accelerating. New developments can break at any hour, and when they do, you need to be here. Subscribe to CAC Crime Trending right now and turn on your notification bell. Drop a comment below with where you are watching from and tell us your biggest question about this investigation. If you have any information about the night of April 4th, about any vessel near Elbow Cay or Aunt Pat's Bay that evening, submit it anonymously through the CGIS Tips application, available on both iOS and Android. Link is in the description. To support Lynette's family directly, the GoFundMe is titled Lynette Hooker Missing in Bahamas, and the link is also in the description. The divers are still in the water. The search has widened. This story is not finished.